The discovery happened during what should have been a routine cargo inspection. Lyra had been serving aboard the Kashari Vengeance, a Kashari warship, for 8 standard months. As the only human among a crew of apex predators who stood nearly 3 meters tall with obsidian claws and fangs designed to rend metal, she'd grown accustomed to being the smallest presence in any room. The Kashari were feared across 12 sectors ambush hunters whose ancestors had stalked megafauna across frozen tundras before they'd ever reached for the stars. She'd earned her place through competence, not size. Her engineering skills kept their weapons systems running at 97% efficiency, a record for the aging vessel. The adult Kashari respected her work, even if they still occasionally checked their stride to avoid trampling her in the corridors. But she'd never expected to become a nanny. It started when young Vex, the captain's cub, discovered Lyra's personal datapad in the engineering bay. The adolescent Kashari, still only 2 meters tall and lacking the scarred hide of the adults, had been exploring where he shouldn't, as cubs were prone to do. When Lyra returned from checking the plasma conduits, she found Vex crouched over her belongings, his large amber eyes fixed on something that made his pupils dilate with what she'd learned to recognize as fascination. "What is this creature?" Vex's translator rendered his growling speech into standard. He held up the datapad, displaying a photo of Lyra as a toddler, gap-toothed and grinning, covered in what appeared to be mud. "That's me," Lyra said, reaching for the device. "When I was small." Vex jerked the datapad away, his tail lashing with excitement. "You? Impossible. This creature has no claws, no fangs. The skull structure is completely inadequate for—" He paused, tilting his head. "You were prey. Small. Humans are born very helpless," Lyra admitted, finally retrieving her datapad. "We can't walk for almost a year. We can't even hold our heads up for months. 2. Rund. Lund. Rund. 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 Rund." The cub's jaw dropped open, revealing rows of developing teeth. "How did you survive?" By the time Captain Thera found them an hour later, Vex had scrolled through Lyra's entire childhood photo collection, his horror and fascination growing with each image. Baby Lyra learning to crawl, toddler Lyra falling off a bicycle, 5-year-old Lyra crying after skinning her knee. "Your young are born with no defenses?" Vex kept repeating. "None? No venom? No armor? No speed? Just stubbornness," Lyra had replied with a smile. That night, Vex appeared at Lyra's quarters with 3 other cubs in tow. They were the children of various officers, offspring of the most deadly predators in known space, and they stared at her with the intense curiosity of young hunters discovering something that defied all their instincts. "Tell us," Vex demanded, his translator crackling with eagerness, "how the tiny human survived." Lyra should have refused. She had duty shifts to prepare for, reports to file. But there was something endearing about these predator cubs, sitting in a semicircle like enormous, fanged kindergartners, waiting for story time. "Well," she began, settling cross-legged on her bunk, "humans survive because we don't do it alone." She told them about her mother, who'd carried her for 9 months and then stayed awake for days after her birth, responding to every cry. About her father, who'd worked double shifts to afford the medical care human infants required. About her grandmother, who'd sung her songs in ancient languages and taught her which plants could heal and which could harm. "But you were defenseless," one of the cubs protested. "Weak prey. Weak individually," Lyra corrected. "But my family was my pack. Humans are persistence hunters, not ambush predators. We're marathon runners, not sprinters. We don't need to kill quickly, we just need to keep going." She showed them more photos. Her first day of school, surrounded by a dozen other human children and 3 adults watching over them. Her soccer team, 11 small humans learning to coordinate like a hive mind. Her graduation, where hundreds of humans gathered to celebrate their young reaching maturity. "You hunt in packs," Vex breathed, understanding dawning. "Not for one kill. For everything. We cooperate." Lyra agreed. "A human baby isn't born with claws. But it's born into a network of humans who've been refining survival strategies for 200,000 years. Every human child inherits the knowledge of every human who came before. The cubs began coming every night. What started as 4 became 7, then 10. They'd crowd into the small corridor outside Lyra's quarters, these massive predator children, listening with rapt attention as she explained human childhood. She told them about vaccines, how humans had weaponized their own biology against disease. About schools, where young humans spent years learning accumulated knowledge instead of relying solely on instinct. About playgrounds, where human children practiced falling safely, building risk assessment through controlled danger. You practice injury? A cub named Kessa asked, shocked. We practice recovery, Lyra explained. Human children fall hundreds of times while learning to walk. Each fall teaches the brain. We're not born knowing how to move, we learn by failing. The concept seemed to shake something loose in their predator worldview. Kashari cubs were born with functional limbs and instincts. They didn't fail. They succeeded, or were culled by natural selection. But human young fail. And live? Kessa pressed. We fail and try again, Lyra said. That's the human superpower. Not strength or speed, persistence. Adaptability. The refusal to quit. Word spread through the ship. Soon, adult Kashari began pausing outside Lyra's quarters during story time, listening as she explained human development. She showed them videos of human endurance, marathon runners, free divers, Antarctic explorers. Humans who'd survived in environments that would kill most species. Your young are born weak, Captain Thera observed one evening, her massive frame filling Lyra's doorway. So they can become anything. Lyra nodded. Kashari cubs are born as predators. Human babies are born as potential. We can adapt to any environment, any challenge, because we're not locked into instinctual behaviors. We learn everything, which means we can learn anything. Vex, who'd started this all, fixed her with those intelligent amber eyes. The tiny human in the photos, he said slowly, became the human who maintains weapons systems on a Kashari warship, because your pack taught you. Because my pack taught me, Lyra confirmed. And because I never stopped learning. The cubs were quiet for a moment, processing. Then Vex asked the question she'd been waiting for. Will you teach us about humans? Lyra smiled, looking at the collection of apex predators gathered in her corridor. These lethal hunters, humbled by the story of a species that conquered the galaxy despite being born helpless. Every night, she promised. Every night, I'll tell you about humans. And she did.